any company, large or small, can now offset carbon just by buying products they were already buying for their business. So the idea behind it was, let's not penalize people for buying products that are maybe made from plastic and they have to buy them, but let's also reward them even more for buying the sustainable products made from fiber, bioplastic, etc.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Sustainable Supply Chain Podcast. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me on the show today, I have my special guest, Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Andrew Hargest. I'm the founder of Supply Club. Supply Club is a hybrid distributor where we marry all the great products and services from traditional distribution with modern tech stack and digital tools.
Okay. To what end?
Yeah, absolutely. So our specialty is packaging and supplies for the food service industry.
Very good. And why? As in, why did you set this up? What was your Damascene moment that made you wake up one morning and go, I know, I should set up Supply Club?
Yeah, of course. So, like most startups or bootstrap companies, you're not really sure what the end result is going to be. You just kind of get started. So, Supply Club actually started as a different name called EcoPliant, which was a side hustle where we were selling paper straws to bars, restaurants, hotels, etc. I came from the packaging industry as a broker. We were a manufacturer's rep for packaging manufacturers in Northern California. And it was right around the time where that video with the straw in the turtle's nose came out, and the scientists were pulling it out with pliers, and it was awful. And it raised a whole bunch of buzz and outrage. And so we were looking to scratch that entrepreneurial itch, and this video came out. And so, as being an outdoorsman, we decided, hey, look, like maybe there's a market here because people are outraged about plastic straws, and we have access to a paper straw manufacturer. Let's see what we can do here, right? When you start out, you don't
Mhm.
really know what you're doing, so you just kind of start and figure it out as you go. So we bought product, we marked it up for more than we bought it for, and we sold it to customers. And that kind of snowballed into more customers, and then we expanded the product line, and what you see today is absolutely nothing like where we started, but we built out a pretty cool business that we're excited about and looking forward to the future.
Okay, so essentially the bottom line is you're selling sustainable packaging to primarily the food industries, correct?
Yeah, so our core business is food packaging to the food service industry. Restaurants, bars, hotels, even hospitals, meal kit companies, caterers, those are all our core customers. If you make and sell food in a to go, takeaway, leftovers fashion, and you need a disposable container or supply in order to meet that need for the customer, we can sell you that product.
Okay. And sustainable packaging, I mean, it's come a long way, obviously, but what's holding businesses back from making greener choices today? Because it's still difficult in a lot of places to get decent sustainable packaging.
Yeah, definitely. So really, I think there's two things that are the core issue. One is education. People don't really know when they hear sustainable, it's this blanket term that doesn't really get down to what it actually means. So education would be a big piece of that is what does sustainability actually mean? Is there a score that I can assign to this product that makes it more sustainable or less sustainable? And then of course that gets into objectivity versus subjectivity, right? Like
Mm.
maybe someone's opinion of sustainability is different. So number one would be education, right? We need to help customers understand what options are available and how it's going to help them achieve their business goals. Number two would be materials, making sure that you're using the right materials and actually putting forth a sustainable product that meets the needs for businesses.
Okay. And what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people might have about sustainable packaging?
I think probably the biggest misconception is that it's wildly expensive. I think when sustainable packaging, and I'm doing air quotes right now because there's a lot of different types of sustainable packaging, but let's take fiber, for instance. It came out as new, right? And people said, whoa, this isn't a polypropylene black plastic container. This looks like it's made out of paper, right? And people call it bamboo when it's actually made of wheatgrass. There's just, there's a lot of guessing to it, but I think back in the day when these products first came out, it was more expensive, right? If you're going to launch something new, you have to invest in the equipment to make those products, and that's going to make it more expensive, right? But as industry scales up, it becomes less expensive because you're able to produce more at a lower cost. And so now today, we're at the smallest delta between what I call petroleum based plastics, which are your regular polypropylene, PET. Those are those black to go containers you might see after you're getting leftovers from a restaurant, and compare it to fiber based materials where, because manufacturing has improved so much and we're scaled up and people have adopted more of it, it's actually brought the price way down to where, sure, it might be slightly more expensive, but even then, if you buy enough of it, right, if you're a large customer, you could actually save money because fiber, PET, polypropylene, all these things are raw materials. They're traded on commodities markets too. So as plastic goes up in price, fiber might be coming down. Right now, we're at a great spot where the parity between the two is actually very close.
Okay, very cool. And how do I know whether a fiber or material is sustainable or not?
The best way to tell is to look for the certifications. You've got a bunch of good companies out there that are certifying things compostable, but then you also have recyclable and the whole recycling system with the numbers. And then you have manufacturing seals like Green Seal and ISO and all those different terms that basically tell you, hey, look, a third party has looked at this and they don't have any skin in the game or financial reward for this, right? Except for maybe getting paid to do the testing. But they can certify it as a third party, removed from the financial reward or gain from selling the product, and they give it the stamp of approval. So just like if you were to certify something vegan or certify something kosher, there's a third party that goes and makes sure that it meets those standards.
Okay, very good. I see your cat in the background there jumping up on top of the
Yeah,
bookshelf.
yeah, he's curious.
No worries. And there's a growing debate about whether compostable packaging is sustainable in practice. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so the sorry about that.
That's all right.
Really, when it comes down to it, it's only compostable if it gets composted, right? So if it ends up going to landfill or accidentally put into you put a something that's contaminated with food, right? And it goes into the recycling stream, then now you've ruined the recycling stream, right? The
Mm.
recycling relies on very clean things. That's why they ask you to wash it before and dry it before you put it in the blue bin. So when it comes to what makes something actually compostable, the main factor is the material. Second factor is manufacturing process, making sure we're not adding anything into it that is going to make it not compostable. And then the third and arguably most important is making sure that the people who are using it last, the end user, has the correct information to put it where it needs to go. And then also, in addition to that, one step further would be making sure that our cities, municipalities, even private enterprise has the right waste capture vessels, so to speak, on their properties or in their towns so that people know what to do and they can do it when they feel the need to.
Where I am, there is no special bins for compostable produce, goods, packaging, anything that's that. If you want to compost
Yeah.
it, you have to do it yourself. And not a lot of people are willing to do that. How
Right.
common is it where you are for the municipalities to have a particular collection for compostable goods?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate to live in New York City. So in October, we launched the residential program, but commercially, it's been around for years. And New York being one of the biggest cities in the country, it's
Mm,
one of the biggest composting programs in the country. And then that means it's one of the biggest recycling programs in the country, but also the biggest landfill program in the country, right? So there's a lot of different things when it comes to waste and waste disposal where I mean, if you look at some statistics, right, the big number is only 9% of recycling actually gets recycled, right?
mm,
So you're taking this thing that's been around for 30, 40 years and you're, still educating the public about what to do, right?
mm,
And if you have a something that's compostable that looks like plastic, like a PLA cup or a PLA straw, then the end user, the public, is it on them to understand everything? I tend to think so. I think a good citizen to understand what they should do with their trash. It's their trash, right? They should
mm.
probably take some responsibility and then also the accountability of the city and municipality to provide the right services so that if the end user, if the citizen wants to do the right thing, they can.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. What about the topic then, though, of tariffs? Because, there's a new regime now in the US, and the new administration are very interested in imposing tariffs and have started imposing tariffs. And of course, there will be retaliatory tariffs imposed as well. So, how do you see them impacting the packaging supply chain in the next few years, or do you?
Yeah, of course. So it's definitely something to look into and make sure that you're making the right moves so that you don't get stuck with a supply chain that is, let's say, tariffed out of being competitive, right?
Mhm.
So with the tariffs and the main target, I should say, being China, and the fact that a lot of the stuff that I sell in Supply Club and also the entire industry sells, most of it is made in China. So it's definitely I don't want to say cause for alarm because there's always a solution, right? If you put your mind to it, you can figure something out. Now, we're fortunate enough to where we're still building from the ground up. So we don't have 10, 15 wholly owned subsidiary factories in Shanghai that we're manufacturing all of our stuff and we're sending over 1,000 containers a month. Maybe some of the bigger companies, and they're definitely on red alert. But for us, our supply chain is flexible enough and still small and agile enough to where we could just pick up and go to another country and make sure that they have the right machinery and the same quality standards. And once you check all those boxes, we're selling disposable containers, right? It's not rocket science and it's not
Okay.
a overly complex electronic. It's not an iPhone. So I don't want to say it's easy because you still have to build the relationship. But
Mhm.
if you have the material, which a lot of Southeastern Asian countries do have over there, a lot of fibrous material. If you have the material and you have the machines and you've got competent people running the factories, you can move to other countries, build the relationship, or someone is already built the relationship and they say, "Hey, we saw this coming. We've got a factory in Malaysia ready to go online right now." And oddly enough, we're doing similar stuff to that right now. So a lot of people are talking about tariffs. We're not so worried about tariffs personally, or within Supply Club, but it is a big thing, and tariffs aren't a new thing. Tariffs have been around for a long time, and there's been tariffs on China for a long time. There's been tariffs on Malaysia. There's tariffs on, I don't want to say everyone. I don't know enough to speak to that, but there's
Mm.
tariffs on a lot of countries that it's 5-10%. Where you start to get into the oh crap meter is when that tariff goes to 50 overnight. Now your tariff cost has made your product cost double. And then with that volatility comes shipping rates go up, and now all your inputs are messed up, and you've got to talk to your biggest customers and say, hey, sorry, but I got to raise prices 25%. just to make money on this. And they're going, no way, man, I'm not going to pay that. I'll go to the next guy. Right. And so it really is going to shake some things up, but also the fact that there's solutions to problems. I think if you want to impose tariffs, that's fine. We got to figure out a way to make it work with or without them. And that's what we're going to do.
Okay, fair enough. What about technology? Is that helping you at all? Everyone's talking about AI at the moment. Is that transforming your business? Is it transforming logistics and supply chain? Or are you ignoring it completely? How is that all working out for you?
No, definitely not ignoring it. Definitely embracing it as much as possible. It's really remarkable. I think a lot of people are at least at the consumer level, they're really fascinated with the way that it can like write a story or a poem, the creative aspect, right? I think most people that have ChatGPT, they're like, oh, look how cool this is. I can tell it to write me an email, right?
Mm,
That's like one thing that doesn't really interest me as much. Where it becomes fascinating is how you can use it to basically create a digital employee to provide a task for you. One example in our business is we were writing out product descriptions for every product we would upload to the site. That was taking us 10, 15 minutes a product, right?
mhm.
Now we use AI, we put all the inputs of the product and we ask it to write us a product description. And that happens automatically when we upload a product to the site. And so now we've taken a 30-minute process and we've turned it into a 30-second process. So that's one thing that I can speak to in my actual business that has I'm not going to say it revolutionized, but it's one of those things where you're like, whoa, this is powerful stuff. This is saving me actual time and money. And then furthermore into that, I would say, and this is kind of where I nerd out, is the coding aspect of AI. It's incredible. I am not an engineer. I am not a software developer, but with the base knowledge that I have and ChatGPT and other AI tools, I've been able to develop software on my website, whereas I would usually have to pay a software developer $80 to $100 an hour to develop that for me. Now I have it at $20 a month, and the possibilities are endless. And the fact that it's getting better every single week to where it
Mm,
can take less direction from you and give you what you want is remarkable. So I'm not all in. We're not an AI company, but I'm
sure.
looking for every single way in the business to institute AI. And it's a buzzword, right? AI this, AI that. So it can get a little tiresome, but I think after a couple of years, we're going to look at this and go, whoa, this was a huge unlock for tons of businesses, not just big businesses, but small businesses too, because now we can compete with the big guys because we have access to the same tools that used to cost 100 grand a year. Now we can do the same thing for $50 a month. It's really cool. So I think you could tell I get super passionate about it because it's just such a, it's like what's fun for me in the business is to see where I can gain efficiencies by using this tool, where I can make something easier on the customer. So yeah, those are my thoughts on AI. I think it's a remarkable technology and it's here to stay and it's only going to get better.
And what kind of uses have you made for it within the company?
So I mentioned the product description piece. That's one. Number two is the just the coding. If I have a glitch on the site, I used to have to figure out, all right, I got to find someone who knows how to write this coding language, and then I got to pay them to figure out how to do it, and then I got to pay them to do it. And so like being able to just have it as an assistant by your side when you're trying to figure stuff out or using it for data analysis, right? If you download a spreadsheet of, this week's orders, hey, what was the most popular product? And give me the rundown of like price breakdown and cost and margin versus everything in the system. You can just give it to the AI bot and it'll analyze the data for you. So having it as an assistant by my side, but also using the API tools to connect different apps together and have it do work that we used to do manually, do it automatically. That's really at the core of what we've been using it for.
And you're in a vertically integrated supply chain. How does that help businesses cut costs and improve sustainability compared to the traditional middleman model?
Yeah, definitely. So We are, I mentioned before, a hybrid, right? So we sell other brands too. We're not completely 100% vertically integrated. However, we are working towards that because a lot of these products, actually, I should say most of these products that we sell are made at the same factories. They just slap a different brand on it, right? And
Mm.
and so a lot of this stuff, it's not white labeled, it's branded, but a lot of the stuff is made, there's a cluster of factories in China that make 90% of the products. There's the PET cup guy, there's the fiber container guy, there's the bag guy, there's the paper container guy. And so knowing that, a lot of the cost and price of buying these brands is in the marketing, right? It's like if you go to the store, if you go to CVS and you buy Advil versus the ibuprofen CVS brand, it's probably
Mm.
$5 or $6 more per bottle. It's the same exact active ingredient. So we have access to the same active ingredients that the other big companies have. So we're working towards building out our supply chain so that, and we're doing some of it now where if you're a large enough customer, we're bringing that in factory direct, right? But in order to serve smaller customers, we also work with other brands and make sure that we're selling high quality products and making sure that customers, some people they just like a certain brand, right? So they always want to go towards it. And you'd even think some brands are synonymous with the product itself, right? A Dart Solo cup is what you think of when you think of a plastic cup, or a sterno is like a wax flame that keeps chafer dishes hot, and you keep them underneath and it burns for 6 hours. People don't know what those are called. They just call them sternos. So of course we definitely work with brands and we make sure that we're getting customers what they want. But we also know that if you're a large customer, you command the leverage to get a lower price, and we have the access to do that as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And what's one thing that you think is in the packaging industry that's still way too old school and needs to be disrupted?
So that's what we're building at Supply Club, is digitizing all of the tools needed to run a traditional paper supply company, or distribution. Really, at the highest level, our goal is distributors are distributors. If you're selling paper products or you're selling electronics, the goal is the same: sell as much product to customers as possible and do it in a way where you're able to provide a service, a value added service to those customers. So our goal is to digitize those tools in a way that makes it easier on the customer to access the products they need to access, and also easier on the businesses themselves internally, so that information is shared properly. You're using data to the best of your ability to make decisions. And then you're also taking out unnecessary functions. Like, one thing I always bring up is sending paper invoices to customers, or getting paper invoices from suppliers. When I started, I guess at the time, EcoPlan, this was still happening, right? The most tech that we were doing was sending people a PDF of the product catalog and saying, let me know what SKU you like. Now we've put all of that on the web where it's accessible 24/7. It's funny because we're still, I don't want to say we're behind, because we do so much, and running a complex supply chain and distribution company is an amazing feat in itself, and it's so value added and necessary. But
Mhm.
there's certain things that I think the old school companies, the traditionalists, they just don't have time. They weren't built that way. So to rip out the admin function or the accounting function in the internal office is next to impossible, because it's going to affect and ripple out across the entire business. Whereas we are fortunate enough to build the tool first using modern scalable tech and then grow into it. So that's kind of our goal, is to make sure that we're digitizing everything in order to grow and scale into where we want to go. We're fortunate to have sidekicks like the best engineer you could pay for right in your pocket with a computer program called ChatGPT. So I'm
Mhm.
not trying to take away from engineers. They're definitely needed, but you can do the work of 10 engineers with one now, just with these awesome tools that have been given to us for such a small amount of money relative to what the
Mm.
value they add.
And What do you think the supply chain industry can learn from other industries that have already been transformed by tech?
I would say more tech is best no matter what. I mean, look at our look at our daily lives. We're maybe for better or for worse attached to our phones, but we have a supercomputer in our pocket and we're able to access any information anytime. So if you could take that capability and put it into your business, and now all of your employees have access to all that proprietary information, why wouldn't you do that, right? If you can share all that data and information across every ladder in the org chart, then that would be beneficial to everyone because it doesn't add any marginal cost to have that accessible and have that nucleus, that brain, be able to see how overlapping departments can talk to each other, or maybe non-overlapping departments need to know what each other are doing. And so having that in a accessible human language form with no technical expertise needed, I think is a no-brainer.
And we all know everyone loves incentives. You guys have this GreenBux program to encourage change. Talk to me a little bit about that. What was the genesis of it? How is it working out for you? Well, what is it? And how is it working out for you?
Yeah, of course. The GreenBux program is our sustainability program, which is a twofold system. One is rewards and a point system that accrue as you purchase product from us. But in tandem with that, it's a CO2 carbon offset program as well. We partnered with a company called Carbon Click based out of New Zealand. They provide an excellent service and help companies offset their carbon emissions by funding projects around the globe that are verified carbon standard approved. So everything is legit and actually going towards removing carbon from the environment. And we now have the ability to both offer rewards and reward customers for loyalty, but also give them the ability and the marketing capability to talk to their customers and say, hey, look, just by buying supplies that we were already buying from Supply Club, we're now able to offset our carbon emissions by X amount just because we diverted our spend to someone else who was stewarding our money and our expenses slightly different or better than the next guy. So how it came about was way back when in the 2000 teens, we had expanded our product line to just fiber, and we were going to be the fiber guys. However, that proved to be hard when someone needed fiber, but they also needed cups and they also needed bags and they also needed various other items.
Mm.
So we wanted to be the experts in fiber, but we were being asked to provide other products, which is totally fine. But the reason why we went the fiber route is because we wanted to eliminate plastic. Well, that is easier said than done, I think, as we know. And really, we wanted to be a complete full service supplier. So a couple months ago, and just the genesis of it was, well, why should we penalize people for buying something they have to have for their business? If you need to have a airtight seal on your packaging and that needs to be plastic because bioplastic options don't offer the same airtight fit or resistance, then why should you be penalized? So what we did was created a badge system that takes the aspects of the product. If it's compostable, that adds a certain amount of points. If it's BPI certified, that adds a certain amount of points. If it's ISO, that adds more points. If it's Green Seal, that adds more points. So what we did was we scored each product in our database. And now, depending on any product that you buy, the amount of points gets put into your account. And then once we did an equivalent of dollar to carbon tons. And then once that hits a certain point, we purchase those credits in your business's name, add them to your account. You can use them any way you want. You can share them on Instagram. You can, share them with your board of directors, etc. Any company, large or small, can now offset carbon just by buying products they were already buying for their business. So the idea behind it was, let's not penalize people for buying products that are maybe made from plastic and they have to buy them, but let's also reward them even more for buying the sustainable products made from fiber, bioplastic, etc.
And how have your customers taken to this?
The feedback we've gotten has been overwhelmingly positive. It's a no-brainer. You opt in, excuse me, you don't have to opt in to the program. We just built it into our business model. So it's one of those things where, okay, I'm getting discounts on all my purchases, and also contributing to a positive cause around the world. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? We're not taking anything from the customer. It's just built into our products. It's built into our business model now.
Left field question for you, Andrew. If you could have any person or character, alive or dead, real or fictional, as a spokesperson or a champion for sustainable packaging, who would it be and why?
Man, that's good. I'll give you a left field answer. So I think Benjamin Franklin. And the reason why is,
Okay.
one is he was a respected individual, right? Founding father, but also he was innovative. He has tons of inventions. He was curious. And obviously, I don't know him, but I feel like if he were a spokesman, he would be the guy who would say, "No way, that's crazy. Let's try it." And that's kind of how I like to operate, is like, let's figure out all the ways why it won't work before we table it and say that it's not going to work, right? I don't like feeling like the answer is no at first. I like to say, hey, let's see if that works, rather than saying, no, that won't work. And he just seems like the kind of guy that if he were around today, we would be able to kind of partner up and say, let's go for that big moonshot idea. Let's do it because we can try, not because we might fail. So he's my answer, Benjamin Franklin.
Very good. Interesting. Nice. Okay. We're coming towards the end of the podcast now, Andrew. Is there any question that I did not ask that you wish I did, or any aspect of this we haven't touched on that you think it's important for people to be aware of?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot, and I appreciate all the great questions and the conversation that we had. One thing I want to leave the audience with is just the fact that we're making incredible strides in both science and technology, and that, we always hear about the plastic problem or big oil and all the problems that we have. And so I want to leave the audience with some form of optimism, because we have so much going for us, not as just a country in the US, but as the world gets more and more connected and technology advances faster than ever. We made it this far. We're going to do great things and continue to build on what we've already built. So a lot of negativity out there, but I see overwhelmingly positive advances in technology and just, civilization in general. So we're going to be okay.
Great. Fantastic. Andrew, if people would like to know more about yourself or any of the things we discussed in the podcast today, where would you have me direct them?
Definitely. So the best way to reach me is my personal email address. It's Andrew, ANDREW, at mysupplyclub.com, just how it's spelled, mysupplyclub.com.
Brilliant. Okay. Andrew, that's been fascinating. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you, Tom. Great to be here. Thanks.